Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! And Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here, coming to you on this Friday, June 2nd. It's getting ready for the weekend. Looks to be a nice one. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're having a great day. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore. Make sure you go to andymorehonda.com to get more to your door. And Endeavor Hospitality and the wealth of family of restaurants located mostly in and around the Bloomington area. Whether you're traveling through or living here, make sure you stop by the great places like BB's Market, located on the south side, full of incredible custom meats, custom-made products, in-house made products, a full-size bakery, and now right next door, opening tonight, or yesterday rather. This is day 2. Chop Shop, new steakhouse. Have not had time to stop by there, but looking forward to that. But make sure you do. It's located right next door to BB's on South Walnut, or if you're in town visiting for a game or whatever. How's your day going? Lots to get to, lots to look at. Big program lined up. Alec Busse joins us. We'll talk college recruiting, get caught up on who's where, what, when, how, why, who pulled out of the draft, who were targets. Zach Osterman will join us from the Indy Star as well. So looking forward to a full day. Bob Kravitz. Indiana basketball's Khalil Ware, among 35 competing for the 2023 USA Under-19 Men's National Team out in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Ware was on the gold medal winning team for the U18 USA Basketball America's Championships team that won that in Tijuana, Mexico. So he probably has a leg up on making that squad. That's a big deal, though. That's when you have players on squads like that, you're getting back to being. You need it, well, more than once, but you're getting back to being where you want to be. And I think that that's definitely the case for the Hoosiers. Lots to talk about today. The SEC sticking with 8 conference games in football, at least for 2024, even though Texas and Oklahoma is coming in. We'll talk more about that. Baseball regional, college baseball this weekend. There's one down in Lexington, Kentucky, that we'll be keeping a close eye on. The Ball State Cardinals and Indiana Hoosiers both playing in that regional, which kicks off today. Let's see. How about the changeover? It's St. John's with Rick Pitino. We'll talk a little bit about that. But no surprise. I'm just looking forward to the fun that it's going to be. Here's a little, I don't know that it's funny, but Michigan has replaced the company it uses to vet candidates' social media profiles following the resignation of Shimmy Simbeckler. Jim Harbaugh said yesterday. Now, Shimmy Schembechler, the son of legendary Michigan coach Bo Schembechler, resigned May 20th, just a couple of days after Michigan's assistant director of recruiting, after scrutiny of his social media history. There was a lot of things found, like racist posts, including one that suggested African-American people benefited from slavery and Jim Crow laws. Harbaugh said, I've known Shem a long time, but there are no sacred cows. Harbaugh said at the National College Showcase. That's not who we are. How do you do that in this day and age? Seriously, I don't even care what you think. How do you there are just some lines you've got to have enough sense not to cross unless you don't have enough sense. And is this a guy who doesn't have enough sense? Because it looks like it to me. And then my next question is, how in the hell is he in a position to be in this position? What's with the hell with people? What's with people? That's a new segment, man. I have to change that into something, John. What's with people?
What the hell is with people?
Well, we do have a new segment. Chopping it up with, like today, we can chop it up with Zach. Get it? Chop.
Hey, and that'll be great because he did just have one of steaks.
You know what? We'll talk about that big, gigantic tomahawk steak he had. If you didn't see it, my God, the bone was like 1.5 feet long, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was definitely a tomahawk.
It was a daddy. But yeah, the Michigan thing, that's not their first. The things have just not been going great for them, which is kind of funny. I'm sure that they're belly rolling down in Columbus, Ohio. But that's just dumb stuff. I mean, they're putting themselves in a position that makes no sense. So, let's see. The Nuggets, they won game 1 last night. As the NBA Finals get underway, this is the first Finals for the NBA Nuggets. It's taken them 47 years of NBA basketball to reach the Finals. They won last night, 104-93 over the Miami Heat. Triple-double from Nikola Jokic. A triple-double in an NBA Finals game. That's not bad. Not bad. Everyone has said that Denver's just going to be hard to stop. I think they probably win this thing in like 6. Game 2 set for 8 p.m. Sunday night in Denver's Ball Arena. Well, that would put Thomas Bryant. He just became one step closer to picking up an NBA Finals ring.
So if the Nuggets were to win the NBA Finals, and I know either or, a former Indiana player is going to get an NBA ring. Who's the most recent Hoosier to get a ring before this year?
Man, come on.
I'm not trying. If you don't know the answer, that's fine. I didn't know if maybe.
Well, I don't know the answer. It's a good question. It's a great question. I will let our fearless fans in the Andy Moore Honda hotline figure that one out. But absolutely. Hey, hello to everybody on the Andy Moore Honda hotline as well. Fred checking in from Easton, Pennsylvania. Kevin Bratcher down there in Jeffersonville. Justin Kent from Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Bob Criswell from Georgetown, Indiana. I went to elementary school with Jamie Criswell, I think, when I was a kid. John's on as well. Heath asking about Antonio Reeves. Got my Hickory shirt on, and so may have to run the picket fence this morning. Let's see, a question here. I was asked, have I gone outside and participated in society lately? The 90s was the last time I know of that money, jobs, insurance, and housing was cheap and plentiful, and race relations were improving. I'm not sure that has what that has to do with the price of tea in China, or if that's referring to Shimmy Schembechler. I don't think that has anything. That's pure stupidity. It's not about improving. It's about having common sense, people. Hello? Do these people not look around and see? Which I don't, but if they were one of those people that did share all those views, do you not see what happens to you? If not, fine. It's actually great. It kind of weeds them out, but I just cannot believe the stupidity. My point, you missed my point. I can't believe the stupidity of someone who was apparently in a position that would have been paid a lot of money. How was this not known? If they've known this, and if Harbaugh's known him so damn well and for so long, how does he not know this? How did anyone not know that? That was Shimmy Schembechler. It was just not anybody. It's Bo Schembechler's son. My God. Crazy. Hey, we've got lots coming up. Alec Busse from thehoosier.com will join us next. We're back with that and more from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the
Good morning, Alec. Oh yeah,
Good morning, guys. How we doing?
Answer with the most recent Hoosier to win and get a ring. There we go.
Yep.
I see you're discussing the eventful Michigan offseason this morning.
What's that?
I see you're discussing the eventful Michigan offseason this morning.
Well, it wasn't, but just came back around to it.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of weird things happen this offseason.
I tell you what, what's interesting to me right now, Kentucky right now only has 7 scholarship players for this coming season. Oh, did Antonio Reeves say he's going to come back?
Well, he said he's coming back to college, but he didn't confirm it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like he said, he may transfer. Like he's not for sure on Kentucky's roster. His recruitment's essentially back open, kind of thing.
Yeah, potentially.
But that would make it 7, right? If he isn't on the roster. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Indiana could use Antonio Reeves. He's a hell of a shooter.
There's a lot of people who could use Antonio Reeves.
Post-draft deadline, the movers and shakers out of that, and then anything going on with Indiana.
Do you know how to say Mongolian Mike's last name?
Who's Mongolian Mike, first of all?
That's a good question.
And where is it that I could see the last name written?
See if I can find it.
If you go to our homepage, Jim, it probably got buried a little bit, but if you go down to like the news tab where you can click like more news and stuff, and it lists all the stories. There's a story, Indiana among finalists for Dayton transfer Mike Sharavhans. I don't know how to say it. But he goes.
I would say Sheriff Jams. I don't know if that's correct, but at least it sounds correct when you say it. Sheriff Jams.
I say Sharavance.
Do you think the J is silent?
He's very well known as like Mongolian Mike. So if you say the name the first time and then we just refer to him as Mongolian Mike, I think we'll be fine. He's the first Mongolian basketball player to ever be in Division I college basketball. So that's kind of cool.
It's pretty badass. All right, here we go, guys.
Food and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hobbs' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back here on this Friday, June number 2, to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Appreciate you joining us. Indiana Sports Beat, Jim Coyle with you. Hope you're having a great day, getting ready for your weekend. Alec Busse from thehoosier.com joins us now. There's a lot to talk about. The SEC sticking with 8 games for the 24 season, through the 24 season, even when they add Texas and Oklahoma. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's really disappointing. As someone who's a huge college football fan, I would consider it to be my favorite sport, and someone who really enjoys watching the SEC because it's really high-level college football and all the environments that go on down there. It does disappoint me that they weren't able to vote to expand to 9 this weekend, or this week, I guess I should say, at SEC meetings. I will say, if you're looking for a positive out of not going to 9 in 2024, they didn't rule it out for 2025. And also, I do think that some of the dialogue that came out of the words of Greg Sankey yesterday, the SEC commissioner, it seems like the 8-game schedule that they're going to roll with in 2024 could still potentially line up some of those secondary rivalries that we all really enjoy watching, like Alabama, Tennessee, or Georgia, Auburn, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. And then I think everyone's really excited to see Texas and Texas A&M renewed, starting potentially in 2024 as well. So I hope that we get those games. I hope that the SEC eventually expands to 9 conference games in 2025. And I think the biggest hurdle to this is ESPN just going to give them more money. I kind of understand where they're coming from, where they don't want to expand to 9 if they're not going to get more money from it. It's not like the SEC struggles to win national championships at 8. I don't really think they're going to struggle to win national titles if they go to 9 conference games. But if you've got the saying, it just means more, maybe you should play more games too.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that they didn't have the cojones to go ahead and make this change, but it's inevitable. There's no way, especially with adding Texas and Oklahoma, that they can refrain from going to 9 games. In my opinion, first of all, you have to have college football on an even keel, and it's not when you have the Big Ten playing 9 and the SEC playing 8. That skews bowl teams, because when you only have to win 2 conference games to make a bowl versus playing more conference games, which makes your schedule more difficult. So it's not keeping things on an even keel. James Franklin from Penn State talks about it all the time, that he doesn't care which way it is, but it just needs to be the same. And I agree. I don't know how you have championships and all that stuff when things just aren't the damn same. That's like having the National League and the American League use different rules like they used to with the designated hitter. but things need to be the same, and it's eventually it will. They're going to go in dragging their feet, but oh well, that's something that they have to deal with.
Yeah, I do think that it'll eventually go to 9. And I do think it's also a little bit unfortunate, and maybe people will disagree with this, and I guess that's okay. But I think it's a little bit unfortunate that some of the smaller brands in the SEC seemed like they were able to influence some of the thinkings of some of the bigger schools on this idea of playing 8 conference games or 9 conference games. I think Kentucky was one of the more outspoken, louder schools in the SEC speaking for 8. And I think we can all agree that what Kentucky's done under Mark Stoops has been really impressive. They've turned into a regular bowl team. They've turned into a program that isn't necessarily competing in the top of the SEC East, right? But they're not getting embarrassed every Saturday like they did for decades upon decades playing in the SEC.
They're competitive.
Yeah, they're a very good program. And I think a lot of people really respect what Kentucky's been able to do under Mark Stoops. So they're a program that I think wants to stay at 8 because, like you said, it's a little bit easier to get to a bowl game if you don't have to play 9 SEC games. And they've also used
Indiana would love to play 8 conference games.
I think a lot of people
promise
like
you
to play 8 conference games, but Kentucky's also used the argument, and it's a logical one. I just don't necessarily agree with it, that they're already playing 9 or 10 power conference games because the SEC requires, I guess they only play 9, Kentucky does, but they have an end of the year rivalry game that they play against Louisville every year. And that's obviously a power conference game. So Kentucky would go from playing 9 conference or 9 Power 5 games to potentially 10 or 11.
Someone else there, everybody else is too. I'm tired of listening to people whine about it. I don't care. I don't care. You should not be allowed to play Troy. You should not be allowed to play these rolling poly schools of the South or whatever. Baloney. Either sack up and be a part of the deal or don't. But that's my get off my lawn speech on that. Let's see. We got the baseball regionals this weekend, in which not only Ball State and Indiana participating down in Lexington, Kentucky, going on. That starts today, actually. Action gets underway, so we'll be keeping tabs on that. But Kentucky, the favorite, of course, they're hosting, and but we'll see who comes out of that to move on to the College World Series at Omaha. Omaha.
Yeah, I'm actually really intrigued by the regional that Indiana got, and I think there's 3 of the 4 teams there are kind of fun. They're all pretty close in proximity. Kentucky and Indiana obviously have some good history on the basketball court. And then Ball State's kind of right there in that neck of the woods too. So there's some good proximity, which should be good for fans. Obviously, Kentucky is viewed as the favorite coming out of the regional at this point, but Indiana baseball has had a very good season. They finished 2nd or 3rd in the Big Ten. Maryland, I know, was one of the best teams in the Big Ten this year. Iowa was also pretty good up there as well. And this is an Indiana team that has had a lot of success swinging the bats, but the biggest thing that kind of moves a lot of those SEC programs ahead of programs otherwhere in the country, I guess, is just kind of the depth of the pitching staffs that those guys have down there. The warm weather really helps them recruit. So I think Indiana will be challenged getting out of the regional by Kentucky primarily. But if they are able to get out of the regional and upset Kentucky or whoever they may beat to get out of the regional and advance to Omaha, it would be a great accomplishment for the Indiana baseball program.
Or whomever comes out of there, even Ball State, if they make it out. The Cardinals, they would be a surprise. 36-21, they're the weakest team in the field on paper. And I think they played Kentucky to start it off, I believe, today.
That does sound right, yeah.
And Indiana taking on West Virginia. We'll keep tabs on that and see how that goes. But good luck to both, and see how that happens. See what happens with that. Let's see. St. John's and Rick Pitino making waves. He's making a big turnover. What have you followed any of that at all?
I saw that they added Jordan Dingle. I know Soriano's going back to St. John's as well. I'm really excited for the Big East this upcoming season. There's a ton of teams that look like they're going to be really good. Obviously, UConn coming off of a national championship, but they have to replace some key pieces, so that kind of opens it up a little bit, I think, in the Big East. Obviously, the storylines of Ed Cooley going to Georgetown, I think they're going to be a little bit better than they have been in the past. Maybe not necessarily competing for a conference title, maybe a bubble team at this point. Creighton got really good news this week with Ryan Kalkbrenner announcing his return, but Arthur Klum is not coming back. But they did get another positive with Trey Alexander returning. And Marquette, like, they're going to be really good again as well. I know they lose Omax Prosper, but they return basically everyone else from a team that was number 2 seed and was one of the biggest surprises in college basketball last season, earning that high of a seed. So I'm really excited for the Big East, and I think Rick Pitino is maybe at the list of the top there, considering that he's brought a lot of his roster from Iona. We know that Rick Pitino is one of the best coaches in college basketball, or at least he's proven that over his college coaching career. And he's definitely got a guy at the top of the lineup in Jordan Dingle, who Indiana was targeting, that should be able to fill it up.
Mike Sharavance, we kind of briefly mentioned him before. He is nicknamed Mongolian Mike, transfer from Dayton. Is that he shot 31 he shot 31% from the arc last season. That's nothing. I mean, that's okay. Is that just filling a spot to fill a spot?
I think Indiana's kind of looking at it in a really tough spot right now with this last scholarship they have available. It's hard to bring in guys right now who I think they view as better than Ja'Kai Newton and Trey Galloway at that 2 spot. I think they should feel pretty confident in what Trey Galloway has given them in his career. And I don't think you really necessarily want to bury guys like Ja'Kai Newton or Gabe Cupps on the depth chart. And I think we can also consider throwing like CJ Gunn into that two spot as well. For some minutes. So, I don't know if I necessarily know if he's a full take right now. I do know they've been kind of evaluating Mongolian Mike as he goes by for a little bit, and they do have a top 5 that they're competing against there with Memphis, Pitt, Nebraska, and then San Francisco as well in there, which, that's not maybe the biggest names for a transfer top 5, but I do think that he does give them something if they do add him. He gives them more length on the defensive side. He's 6'8", and Mike Woodson spoke this week about how he likes being long and tall defensively. That really helps with the idea of switching, and that's something that I think this IU team's going to do a lot more on the defensive side. Like you said, though, his shooting numbers weren't eye-opening. He was 31% beyond the three-point line, like you said, but he was pretty good off the dribble last year as a shooter. He was in the 68th percentile, I think it was, according to Synergy, and he was around like the 50th percentile or so on catch and shoot opportunities. And remember, that was only as a freshman. So if he's at Indiana for a couple of years, maybe he turns into a better shooter and someone that they can trust to make more shots. But I do think that this last scholarship, they're going to be pretty selective filling it because, again, like, I don't think that there's a ton of stars out there right now left in the transfer portal. And I think that Indiana feels pretty confident in Trey Galloway, Ja'Kai Newton, CJ Gunn, maybe Gabe Cupps a little bit, and their ability to play in the 2-guard spot.
The draft, the deadline to withdraw from the draft has come and gone, and Mike Woodson referenced that at the Hubers Wednesday night when they were down there speaking with that would potentially play a part in what they might do with that open scholarship. Any names that have come out of that?
Yeah, the one name that really kind of came out of it was Mongolian Mike. He's kind of the one that Indiana's been connected to since.
That's it?
Yeah, pretty much. There hasn't been a ton of guys I've seen at least enter the transfer portal since, that window closes or grad transfers enter the transfer portal, because that's really who we're speaking specifically about. Guys had to be in the transfer portal before the portal's closed now. So if you're an undergraduate basketball player, you're not able to enter the portal at this point. So there hasn't been a ton of names connected at this point, and you're looking mostly at grad transfers. And we'll see if some of those kind of come up. Those grad transfers can enter the transfer portal here for a while, and we'll see if Indiana gets connected to any of these guys who maybe decide to enter the transfer portal as grad transfers in the next couple of weeks or maybe even months to see if they want to make it one final addition to the roster, because that's all they have left.
Well, looking forward to that. What's the next step for Indiana then?
Next step, workouts should be starting here pretty soon. Players are getting on campus this week or this weekend. I believe Ja'Kai Newton is already on campus. Don't know exactly if Gabe Cupps is on campus or Khalil Ware, just to name a few. Peyton Sparks should be making his way over to Bloomington, obviously an in-state kid. They'll start workouts next week, it sounds like, and Mike Woodson seems like he's really excited to finally get this group together. When you talk about the fact that they're replacing, I think, 7 or 8 players from last year, he obviously has a lot of work to do when it comes to figuring out the exact style of play. I know he says he has an idea, but you got to work through those kinks. And then just getting the group of guys together, I think, is a big thing as well at this time of the year, because you got to build chemistry and you got to build a team, if that makes sense. Like, he's built a roster, but I don't know if they're necessarily a team yet. And I think that kind of all starts next week.
I had Ja'Kai Newton on the show the other day. I know he was moving in on Wednesday, so I'm looking forward to meeting up with the guys he had not met with, the transfers. So that's taking place. And as the rest of the Big Ten, Purdue now set with the most unshocking announcement in the history of college basketball, that Zach Edey was returning to Purdue. So the Big Ten will be tough at the top again next year. That will be fun to watch and to look at. Purdue returning pretty much the core of their team from last year.
Yeah, Purdue basically returns the exact same roster as last season, and I think that's one of the reasons why they're my Big Ten favorite as of right now. Zach Edey, obviously the returning National Player of the Year, so they're kind of my Big Ten favorite right now. Michigan State basically returning their exact same roster as well, and they obviously finished the year pretty well. Lost in the Sweet 16 to Kansas State in a phenomenal basketball game at Madison Square Garden. Illinois had a really good day on Wednesday, I guess it would be, when those players announced that they were coming back. They get Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon Jr. back. They're still figuring out their point guard situation over in Champaign, though. But I think Illinois is kind of in a similar spot as last season, where they've got some good wings, they've got some good intriguing pieces on the front court, and they're kind of banking on some of their sophomores to take a little bit of a step. But I think Illinois is kind of right there in that top 5 mix. I'd also put Indiana in there, Ohio State, Maryland. I like kind of what Maryland's done this offseason with Jameer Young returning. And then Rutgers got a good addition back in Cliff Amorie, who I've always really liked him. I like his athleticism. I like his shot blocking capabilities, and he's really fun to watch on the offensive end because he jumps through the roof. But we'll kind of see where Rutgers kind of profiles. They obviously missed the tournament last year after going to the NCAA tournament in consecutive seasons. So Steve Peichel is kind of working a little bit of a retool, maybe, I guess you could say. But yeah, it was a pretty good day for the Big Ten on Wednesday, getting Coleman Hawkins, Terrence Shannon Jr. back in Illinois, getting Jaden Akins and AJ Hogarth, especially back at Michigan State, and then getting Zach Edey back at Purdue, obviously returns the National Player of the Year to college basketball for another season.
Yeah, which has kind of been the way it has gone in the last couple of years with those guys sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Tshiebwe did it last year before moving on this year, but that's a different story that we'll talk about. Looking forward to seeing how things. What is the last? I'm going to say what's the last date that Indiana fans could expect that if there were to be another edition, that they could add somebody else to this roster?
Well, I hope this doesn't give people an aneurysm, but last year when I was looking for apartments in Manhattan, Kansas, as I was preparing to move there in late August, early September, they had a Keontae Johnson in late August. Now that was obviously had some external circumstances concerning his heart condition. I don't think Indiana will go that long. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of make it a final decision here by the middle of June, end of June, if they're going to try and add another piece. But maybe someone enters the portal as a grad transfer that is of supreme intrigue to them.
I was going to say, it would take something of extreme interest for it to be late, because getting indoctrinated into this team, this system, all that goes along with that for months leading up to the fall, and to just come in, that would seem to be extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, I do agree there. I think, like I said, I think they're going to be pretty selective with this last scholarship spot. They want to make sure that the type of player that they bring in is really going to help them, and not just be a roster spot and a scholarship holder, because that doesn't really help you in this era. And there's not a huge reason for them to carry 13 scholarship players anymore, because you don't play 13 guys very often. And a lot of times you're seeing a lot of attrition out of these programs with guys that don't play. So we'll see if Indiana ends up filling the scholarship. I know a lot of people around the country are leaving scholarships open. I mean, heck, Kansas might leave 2 open this upcoming season, and they're potentially the preseason #1 team in the country. So you don't have to have all 13 scholarships filled, but it certainly helps if you've got some added depth of scholarship players at the same time.
Yes, for health, for backup, for playing, for practice, for everything. We've seen teams just get down. Indiana, seen them get down with the injury bug over the last couple of years. Michigan State had it happen to them as well. But what is up next for you and the Hoosier.com?
Yeah, this weekend I'm really excited. I should be going down to Jeffersonville to see the Indiana Juniors versus Kentucky Junior All-Star game. I'm hoping that Flory Badunga is down there. He's someone that Indiana's obviously showing a ton of interest in. Other schools kind of in the mix with him include Florida, I believe Auburn's in there, and then Cincinnati, I think, is kind of viewed as one of the biggest competitors for Flory Badunga. He's the top 5 recruit in the 2024 class. And then Kentucky has one of my favorite players in the entire class, in Travis Perry. He's a really heady guard, elite shooter, elite shot maker, still developing a little bit as a playmaker, but I believe he is the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky basketball history, and he's about to go into his senior year. So that kind of says a lot about what his scoring and shooting capabilities are. So hoping those guys are down there playing in Jeffersonville this weekend. So make sure you check that coverage out at the Hoosier at indiana.rivals.com. Had a good feature story go up yesterday on the impact that Jalen Hood-Schifino is having on Indiana basketball recruiting in the long term. Mike Woodson spoke pretty highly of that this week down at Hubert's Winery. So we decided to turn that into a good feature story. And then we'll have some more stuff going up from the Huber's event, including a story going up today about Xavier Johnson.
Looking forward to it. Alec Busse from the Hoosier.com. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. Hopefully you guys have good weather.
Thank you very much. Alec Busse joining us here. We've got more coming up. And don't forget, this Sunday down in Jeffersonville, the juniors taking on the juniors all-stars as that series has started up, and we'll be running through the 10th, I think, of different events. And we'll have complete coverage for you on that as well. More coming up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by Go Team. Make sure you pick up Go Team Bites at BB's Market or GoTeamBites.com. Tough to find a fresh, healthy, tasty snack for those on the go, whether it's you, your team, the family. Go Team Bites are full of protein powder, taste great, easy on the go. It's an easy way to keep your energy level up. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether
Hey, what's up?
What was that noise?
What? Oh, it was an ad that accidentally started playing. Not one of our ads, like an internet ad.
I have so much to do. Oh my God. What's next?
You're open for this next segment, and then Zach Osterman's after that.
So this is a short segment.
It's still going to be about 13, 14, 15 minutes or so, but yeah, I mean, it's shorter than normal.
So what time do we go? No, not what time do we go to? On the clock.
On the clock, it's always, as long as you break between 54 and 55-ish in those 2 minutes, you're good. You're good to go there. All right, 30 seconds.
Available throughout the Bloomington area is a fresh, home-cooked, nutritious meal prep that we cook up. The Fresh Fork takes care of all the planning, shopping, and prepping and can even deliver them to your doorstep once a week. That's right, it's the fastest, simplest, and easiest way to avoid decision fatigue. You pick your plan and pick up at BB's Market with no extra charge. So leave the heavy lifting to us and enjoy healthy eating with stocked meals in your fridge. Order online today at thefreshfork.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It's Friday. As we get June started, June 2nd, perusing over the Major League Baseball standings, because I think, my Reds lost last night to the Red Sox. Put a cap on their 5-game winning streak. That's okay. They're still only 3 games out of first place. This is June, people. And the Reds are 3 games out of first. Behind the Brewers. The Central Division of the National League, Brewers, 2 games over 500. At 29 and 27. But who cares? The Braves lead the East, of course. The Mets trailing. K-Bros Mets. The Diamondbacks and the Dodgers are tied out in the West. And then over in the Old Man's League, I don't know why that seemed like that when I was growing up. Central Division, fun. You got the Twins, the Tigers, and the Guardians. Kyle Ned rips Tigers, hanging in there at second at just 2.5 games back. But our old friend Rick Bozich's White Sox, man, they're 10 games underwater and 7.5 games back. Does not look good for the Black Sox. Just kidding. Man, do the Reds have a shot here at doing something? We'll see. They're growing. They are growing their team through the old-fashioned way, developing players. They're certainly not paying them. How about the Reds? Man, that would have been a cool series to go see. They're in Boston, though. But the Reds and the Red Sox, two very old franchises right there. Looking forward to talking to Zach Osterman today. And, of course, our good friend, Bob Kravitz. The weekend or the sports scenes have finally calmed a bit. We've had the Derby. We've had the month of May with the Indianapolis 500. Now it's just time to relax a little bit. You've got summer basketball, summer baseball. Still have the draft coming up. And these certain teams finalizing rosters, but in college, the guys are moving in, meeting their teammates, whether it's football, basketball, it doesn't matter. Everybody moving into school across the board. How about what Rick Pitino is doing up at St. John's, by the way? But is that a surprise? Did not think it would take him long at all. I've always, I don't care what you think of him. I think he's probably the best coach in college basketball today. And he's right in his wheelhouse, man. He's come full circle to where he probably needs to be. New York. New York. Do you know how many new players? He is the Deion Sanders of college basketball. 11 new players in 2 months. 11. This is in a league that has Marquette, Xavier, UConn, Creighton. That's going to be fun to watch next year. And he is going to make it fun. That league will be that's going to be some fun stuff to watch. Let's see. Thomas Bryant closer to winning a ring last night. That means, I mentioned it earlier, that means Cody Zeller and Victor would be without one, but Tom Crean having reasons to crow right now with all his players in playing for a world championship. Hey, he put a lot of guys in the NBA. A lot of guys in the NBA. Didn't coach a lot of defense, but he got guys in the NBA. Most of the players that are in the NBA right now from Indiana are of his.
With the exception of two, right? Just two that aren't.
Eric Gordon and right now
Romeo.
And Romeo Langford, but that'll change coming in the next draft when I guarantee Jalen Hood-Schifino, who seems to be climbing the ladder and potentially sneaking into being a lottery pick. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if that were to happen. Because these workouts that these individual workouts conducted for teams and whatnot, these guys get their own take. And they don't like to share those takes because they want to keep that in-house. Because if they see a guy that they really believe in and think that they'll take her, they don't want that known. And Jalen Hachifino he has a pro attitude. He has a pro mentality. I remember going down to Montverde Academy when he was still in school and interviewing him. And yeah, those guys they're already at a different level, and that makes a huge difference mentally. CJ Gunn working hard all summer. See, that's the thing. These guys are off doing a lot of things up until now on their own. And by that, I don't mean by themselves outside shooting in the driveway. They're in other states, other places, working out with people, specifically trainers, working on their game. And that's where you see differences. That's where you see breakout seasons. Who works harder? Who just happens to develop better? Sometimes it's just about, the luck of the development. But you also have, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Caleb Banks. He's doing the same thing. And this is the guy that showed some promise last year. So it's going to be interesting. This Big Ten season is going to be fun to watch, whether it's Michigan State, Purdue, Indiana, Illinois. Don't sleep on Maryland. Is Ohio State going to be a dark horse?
Break.
We've got to take a break. When we come back, Zach Osterman will be joining us from the Indy Star. We'll talk grilling and sports. Brought to you by our good friends at Barber Pop Real Estate Services. If you're down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area looking for a home, you need Barber Pop. They have served those communities for 30 years. Reach out to Barbara at barberpop.com or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barberpop.com. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're in the market, JB. Oh, yeah, that's what I was. Oh.
TGIF.
And you're not going to be in studio Monday, correct? You're going to be on location.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. All right, let Zach know we were ready for him. I'm sure he will be on here shortly.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
All right, here we go.
Stone Restaurant on Patterson and Rogers. It's one of the most popular gathering spots in Bloomington. Whether you're out on a date with your spouse, friends, or coworkers, Feast Market and Cellar offers an extensive wine selection with a sommelier on staff to help you with your selections. Feast also provides a wide variety of cheeses, gourmet sandwiches, entrees, a coffee bar, bread, pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast Market and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Friday, and Zach Osterman from the Indy Star is with us. Hope you are ready for the weekend. I am. Zachary, are you ready for the weekend?
I suppose.
Doesn't take much. Just get ready. I saw that you were certainly cooking for the weekend the other day. Man, that was a beautiful tomahawk steak you had on the grill, and looked like you were just taking care of it to great perfection.
Yeah, I think I forget what the new name is, but courtesy of the artist formerly known as BB's Market,
Chop Shop.
The Chop Shop. Yeah, just a big tomahawk ribeye, 225. Smoked it at 225 for about 2 hours. Got it up to about 140 degrees. Pulled it off. Let it keep cooking while I heated up the pit. I got a pellet grill at Pit Boss and seared it about 60 seconds each side, and then rested it for 20 minutes and sliced it. So,
man, that's you've got the down pat on that. That's a lot of steps of perfection. I don't think I'm quite that talented on the grill yet. I don't have a smoker. I just have a grill. I probably don't have the patience to be a good meat smoker.
yeah, I mean, obviously, the
Takes patience in beer, right?
yeah. To be fair, the pellet grill or the pellet smoker takes some of the difficulty out of it. It makes some of it easier, but still, I don't do it as much as I used to just because of kids and stuff. But it's fun when I get to. So
yeah, absolutely. This week we were down in Starlight, Indiana for the annual Hubers gathering of IU coaches and speakers and the fans who got to get up close. A unique opportunity for them once a year. It's a great opportunity for us in the media because we don't get to talk to a lot of the Mike Woodson or the players, some of these players, guys, since the end of the NCAA tournament season. The same with Tom Allen. So it's a great opportunity for us to talk to them before we go into another little hibernation of sorts. But it was nice to get to talk to those guys in a while. Mike is always just as open and engaging as can be.
yeah, I mean, Huber, I think, and obviously it's been going on for a long, long time.
I'm thinking 1991 was the first year, because I hate to admit this, I was in college and I was there.
Well, and there was a time when, to be honest, I think it was more. It was not that it's not a big deal. If anybody who maybe doesn't know, the heart of Indiana's booster base really is basically the I-65 corridor between Indianapolis and Louisville. And, there's stop-offs along the way, Columbus, obviously Bloomington, Seymour, et cetera. But just that whole cluster around Louisville, Jeffersonville, New Albany, obviously Louisville itself, that's a big area. And Indiana doesn't get down there as often. Indiana plays basketball games in Indy. It plays football games in Indy. It has events in Indy annually, reunions and things, but it's not quite as sort of omnipresent in Louisville. And so it's always been a big event for just kind of getting in front of that part of your donor base, your booster base. And I think there was a time that predates me when athletics budgets were lower, when just the raw fundraising you do from that night alone, between the money you get for, buying tickets and tables, any kind of auctions you might do, and then maybe a little grip and grin with a few select boosters, that would be a meaningful drop in the bucket, so to speak, of your overall budget. Now, not that it doesn't matter anymore, because it does, but it's not quite what it used to be when you're running $100 million revenues every year. And I think that's one reason why maybe, you could feel comfortable as Indiana turning that into an NIL fundraising event, which it was this year for the first time in its history. But I think the other thing for us, and probably to some extent for Indiana fans, Indiana coaches, administrators, I know baseball's still playing, and every once in a while, track is still going on, or golf or something like that. But the reality is by late May or early June, when it is, the academic athletic year is pretty much over. And, a lot of kids, most of the athletes aren't on campus. Sometimes basically none of if sports aren't in postseasons, basically nobody's required to be anyway. Some will be around, but nothing's organized. And it's very much kind of the event that I think in a lot of people's minds sort of resets the calendar and turns the page to 2023, 2024. It's when we stop asking so much about last season or about spring camp or whatever, and we start asking much more about, are you looking forward to summer? Are you looking forward to fall? How are you going to shape things up? And usually when we go down there, the basketball and the football players are about to start cycling back onto campus. And so that's meaningful too. But it basically just, it essentially just kind of, like I said, it essentially just kind of sort of resets the calendar, I think, in a lot of ways, and turns your attention to the season to come.
Absolutely. And it's a unique opportunity for a lot of the fans that are down there. As you mentioned, they don't get down there that often. So not only are they getting to have a group come down, but they get to get up close to Mike Woodson. And before that, it was Bob Knight, and which is what started this all, which is how it got started. But that unique opportunity to get that that kind of access, which now it is turned into an NIL opportunity for Indiana, which we'll see how. I'm not sure how they're going to manifest all that. Of course, you get upwards of 900 people there, which that helps. They have an auction, but I think the biggest thing for this is going to be the outreach that they use this for, to talk to these people.
No, I think that's very fair. And not that they wouldn't have engaged with some of these people in different ways, whether it's one-to-one with certain people, or it's obviously stuff like, when you're at the basketball games and they put the QR code up there and say, scan this is the official collective of IU Athletics and all that. But it's always, it's NIL fundraising isn't going to be fundamentally that different from, for example, athletics fundraising. And you're going to constantly sort of be wanting to be in front of people and talk about, hey, how can we strengthen this relationship? Here's what we've been working on. Here's where we'd like to go next. And, here are some, I didn't sit in on the dinner, but I imagine at some point or another, some discussions were had about this is kind of what, the athletes who've been working for Hoosiers for Good, or working with Hoosiers for Good, I should say, have been doing, charitable causes throughout the community. And so I think it's just kind of one of those where I know for some people NIL is kind of new and different, but it's probably not that different from a fundraising perspective. And it's about, building and then maintaining those relationships. And obviously what is different is Indiana can be a direct part of this now. NCAA regulations have loosened and allowed departments to have these sorts of, one-to-one relationships with official collectives, with NIL collectives. And that's very meaningful, obviously, because when you can bring Mike Woodson, when you can bring Tom Allen, when you can bring Scott Dolson, when you can put the weight of the department behind it, and you can get, I know they had an auction, you can get signed memorabilia, you can offer tickets, you can do all these different things. It's obviously that stuff's going to help raise money. But there is also just a part of it that, I suspect if we were talking to Colin Hartman or Tyler Harris, who are two of the, sort of the people in positions of substantial leadership in the Hoosiers for Good and Hoosiers Connect, sort of joint operation, they'd say that there's no substitute for just being able to get with people and build and strengthen relationships and have those. Maybe again, the other thing about Huber is, it's far enough removed from everything and nobody's ever mad about anything. You're never in that room and somebody's like, yeah, but you lost to Purdue last week. And so I'm not feeling the school spirit right now. It's also in the summer when everybody's relaxed. And I think there may be some sort of golf element to it as well. I'm not positive about that, but obviously Fuzzy Zeller's got his course down there. And so, I think that it's a little bit, too, just kind of a good time essentially for everybody to sit down. And like I said, there's just no substitute for that one-to-one interaction.
Absolutely. Changing subject for a second, baseball this weekend, the regionals, of course, are going on, one of which we're keeping an eye on down in Lexington, not only Indiana, but Ball State in that regional. Indiana State has a region. How about just the state of Indiana? First of all, you got to give all these teams credit. Getting into the baseball postseason, if you are north of the Mason-Dixon line, is not an easy thing to do. And to get three of these teams in, that's a pretty nice accomplishment. I mean, they're not in the World Series yet, but
no. I mean, listen, I can remember a time when the Big Ten would basically just be a one bid league. I mean, for a long time, it was pretty consistently a one, maybe a two bid league. You go back to Tracy Smith's first appearance in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, that team struggled a lot early in the season, struggled in some of its midweek games, but won the Big Ten tournament. Really powered through the back half of the Big Ten schedule and won the Big Ten tournament. But I mean, that team was the 4 seed in a regional down in Louisville. And that, I forget who the 3 was, but I think Vandy was the 2 and Louisville was the 1, obviously. The point is, the automatic bid out of the Big Ten that year got a 4 seed. I mean, it was treated the way that when you saw Valpo, and I'm not picking on Valpo, but when Valpo came through, when Indiana hosted a regional in 2013, they were the 4 seed. They weren't ever going to rise anything above that. The conference has strengthened. Now, it's never going to be what the ACC is, what the SEC is, what some of the Western or West Coast conferences are. It's just not realistic for a variety of reasons. You're never going to have quite the depth, for example, to be able to maybe build a consistent power the way that Louisville has with Dan McDonald. But I think that, listen, this is not me saying Indiana baseball shouldn't be ambitious, but 7 regionals in 11 years and a trip to Omaha is really good. And that's, I think, 3 Big Ten titles in that time, a couple Big Ten tournament titles. Obviously, only one time they've gotten out of the first weekend, but a Big Ten team has not known a run like that in a long time. I mean, and I'm looking this up kind of while we talk, the only maybe modern-ish, I guess, comparison would be Bob Todd, who was the longtime baseball coach at Ohio State, and I think they had a run of either 4 tournaments in 5 years or 5 tournaments in 6 years. I think I don't think they ever made it to Omaha, because I think the last Big Ten team to make it to Omaha before Indiana was Barry Larkin's Michigan team in '84. But listen, you've seen Michigan get back to Omaha. In fact, get to the national championship series. Since then, you've seen Illinois host a regional. I think even a super regional. The conference is not what it used to be, and Indiana has played frankly a really substantial part in that, like a big part in sort of raising the expectation and raising the realistic ambition of a team in the conference that wants to invest. Now, it's also helped that, for example, Indiana's added Maryland, which came with some pedigree from the ACC, has added Nebraska, which will always take baseball seriously. But I can remember when when Nebraska came into the league, and Darren Erstad said, we're going to teach the Big Ten how to play baseball. And 2 years later, it was Indiana and Omaha. And Nebraska, I don't think under Erstad's management ever got to the NCAA tournament. They did once. But the point is, I'm kind of rambling here, but the Big Ten is not what it once was. It's not surprising when you see 3-4 teams from the league in the field. It's not surprising when you see a Big Ten team in line to host. I know one didn't this year, but there were times, various points where Indiana and I think maybe Iowa flirted with having a strong enough resume RPI-wise to host. Those kinds of things did not happen 15, 20 years ago. Your Big Ten champion might host, but they might also be the only Big Ten team in the field. And the conference has come on leaps and bounds, frankly, in that sport.
Indiana basketball now is set roster-wise, it seems. I know they have an open scholarship. I'm not sure that they're going to fill that, which I'm trying to stay out of the prediction game now, the way everything has changed. If something comes along, I think that they would, but I don't know that just adding a player, unless they just want to add a body to have that extra body. I know the kid from Mongolian Mike from Dayton that everyone is looking at. He just looks like that's a body to add if that were to happen. But other than that, Indiana seems to be in pretty good shape. Other than people wishing that or wanting to have brought in a name for that additional spot rather. But other than that, they have filled out their roster in a way that it's been better in recent years as far as a team construction, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a lot of work to be done in adapting in. You've got as many players coming in as returning. And Mike Woodson, was pretty frank, I thought, about saying there's going to be a lot of work to do this summer. We talked to him, as you said, on Wednesday. He said there's going to be a lot of work to do this summer to figure out roles and get guys comfortable. And it's probably not going to be, the same as it was his first year, but it might, there might be some parallels in terms of just the total number of guys that are going to have to get comfortable with what he wants from them offensively, defensively, et cetera. But I think that in the same breath, I think that, as you said, you don't have to work hard to kind of look at this team and say, if they don't add another player, you've got a pretty set, I don't want to say set, but you've got good competition there with the starting five. You know what Xavier Johnson is. You know what Trey Galloway is. Mackenzie Mbako, I think, has talked about being able to play the three. Obviously, we would expect Malik Renew to be mixing it up for his starting position. Kalel Ware. Behind them, you've got, players like Caleb Banks, Anthony Walker, Peyton Sparks. You will need somebody, and if you don't add another player, and maybe there is an argument for just adding some depth, but if you don't add more depth, then you're going to need somebody from kind of the CJ Gunn, Ja'Kai Newton, Gabe Cupps, Anthony Leal, that sort of quartet. You're going to need a couple of those guys to step up and give you minutes as reserve guards in different ways and in different roles. But it's, for a team that the night they lost to Miami, we all could tell, who was leaving, who was graduating, and then you sort of factored in one or two guys will almost certainly transfer. That's just the nature of the sport these days. You would have looked at it and said there's a lot to do. We don't know where Indiana's points and rebounds and assists and blocks are coming from. You can draw up, at least on paper, a team that makes a lot of sense from what they've been able to do, and a team that's very athletic, very long. I've argued, till I was blue in the face. Looks a lot more like the teams that Mike Woodson built, in his time in New York and certainly his time in Atlanta. And if they add somebody else, then, I would imagine at this point it seems more likely to be a depth piece, both because of what's out there and also because, and I've made this argument, if not to you, then Jim, to other people, I think there's an extent to which Mike Woodson is going to want to say, like, I want to know what my team is very early in the summer. I don't want to be dropping some major contributor in late July unless I absolutely have to, or it's somebody we can't turn down. There's so much to work through in terms of, again, rotations, roles, figuring out what's different when it's Khalil Ware and Malik Renew instead of Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson, needing Trey Galloway to take a step forward, needing Xavier Johnson to be a leader. I think he described himself as a big brother on Wednesday to all these guys. A lot of this summer is going to have to be about sort of fostering that chemistry and building just that sort of team dynamic, because you have so many new faces. And I don't think if you're Mike Woodson, unless you just absolutely can't justify not doing it because the player's so good or you desperately need him, I don't know that you'd want to drop, just some sort of curveball in there in like late July or in the preseason, just because you're going to want to be able to work with your team for as long as possible and not have to tear any plans up and kind of start over. So
sounds good. Well, Zach, buddy, I appreciate it as always. I hope you enjoy a relaxing weekend.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. You too, brother.
Zach Osterman, the Indy Star. Make sure you give him a follow. Be a subscriber. I am. Back with more as Bob Kravitz from The Athletic joins us next on this beautiful Friday, brought to you by Metalworks Brewing Company, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality family, served in all of the Endeavor Hospitality restaurants or at their own location right off of the square on 6th Street. Back with the incomparable Bob Kravitz after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether
the incomparable Bob Kravitz is here.
Incomparable. Who you calling incomparable?
Oh, I meant to say oh, is that what I meant to say?
You meant to say incompetent.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. How are you today, sir?
Good. I was going to go to the Colts today, but my boss said, don't worry about it. So I'm going to go play golf.
Yeah, what a great idea. What a novel idea.
What a novel thought. In fact, while we're let me send this guy a text real quick. Hey, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you remember, if you could send a card, that would be great, man.
Yeah,
if you ever get another one in.
I'm just going to send two of them at the same time.
That'd be great.
And I should be able to email them. I think I can email them to you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's on my list. Yes, I played last night. Yeah, you're getting out right now will be okay. It won't be. It'll be nice. It's still nice out.
Yeah. Hang on one second. I got to send this guy a text real quick.
You're good. We still got a minute and a half.
Okay.
Shoot, they have 2 great courses there. What are you talking about?
Okay, 30 seconds.
Located at the corner of Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington, offers a variety of freshly made fare, tying their roots in limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Friday, June number 2. And Bob Kravitz is here to send us off onto the weekend. How are you, Robert?
I'm fabulous, man. How are you?
You look fabulous.
You like this beard I'm growing? My wife isn't sure what to make of it.
Yeah, well, you know, it looks very Kravitz-ish.
Kravitz-esque?
Yes, very,
very
debonair.
Debonair, yes.
The last time I saw you was in Indianapolis at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a week ago. The Indianapolis 500 is the greatest spectacle in sports. It's not even close. What even comes close to Indianapolis on there's nothing that comes close on scale, size.
Well,
I mean, it's just
enormous. For a one-day event, nothing matches it. I would suggest that the Olympics are.
Oh yeah.
From a global perspective, and it's also 2.5 week marathon. But for a one-day spectacle, a one-day event, nothing that I'm aware of matches up with the Indianapolis 500. And yes, I'm an Indy guy now, and I guess I'm legally sworn to say that, but I really believe that. I have not covered F1 except when it was in Indianapolis, and that was a small disaster with the tire mess and everything else. But for one day, this is as good as it gets, and that was a phenomenal day, a phenomenal month. I mean, going all the way back to Graham Rahal failing to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. I thought that bumping was interesting. I just thought it was a really compelling month. That was, and the exclamation mark came with that final lap shootout between Ericsson and the eventual winner. So I thought it was great stuff. Newgarden, of course. So
it was. And Fozon, the World Cup and Champions League but those are events. I agree with you. Those are like the Olympics, but we're talking about one-day event. But and what a great to see a kid from Tennessee win the race. And you talk about basking in this. I mean, I was kind of cheesy. I put out one tweet that said Joseph is really milking his experience. He had his wife. They were lying down on the yard of bricks with the baby and taking pictures. I mean, it was just, you could tell he was
He knew what had happened because he's tried and failed.
This is his 12th attempt. And while, he's only 32 years old, he started in this sport very early and was something of a prodigy. It was still a hole on his resume. You got to think that you've got plenty of years to get it. But after 12 tries and winning 2 IndyCar championships and being as successful as he has been, you start to get the reputation as the greatest driver who's never won the 500, just like the best golfer who's never won a major or something like that. So I thought it meant the world to him. He made it abundantly clear. I think going into the crowd was both crazy and inspired. And I thought it was just a really good look for the Indianapolis 500 to have a winner who it was so clear that it meant the world to him.
And he embraced. Well, I think most of the drivers embrace every single person at that track. Indianapolis, they love. That's another thing about this event. I don't know that I can think of another event to where the participants are so in love with the venue, the city the venue is in, the people around it, like Indy. I mean, those people love Indy. They love the track. They love the people. They love the experience, the whole thing. It's a unique deal.
It's a unique deal because it used to be a month long. Now it's 2.5 weeks long. But, there's no other course where you go in, or no other racetrack where you go in and you have 2 full weeks. I mean, nobody qualifies the way they do at Indy. It's the scariest, most dangerous track, in the series. And look, IndyCar is IndyCar. It's a niche sport, but the Indy 500 stands alone. Just like Churchill Downs and the Derby, horse racing is what horse racing is in this country these days. But the Kentucky Derby stands alone, within horse racing as a standalone event, and that's what the Indianapolis 500 is. And I love how much it means to the people of the city. It's so it's such a huge part of our DNA.
Yeah, so much so that they can withstand the fact of having the broadcast blacked out on TV and not be able to watch it.
Right. And the bitching and moaning, you hear it from some people, but I think most people have accepted the fact that, it costs a lot of money. And I have not seen all the numbers, but it costs a lot of money to put the lights on at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's a lot of yellow shirts, a lot of power, a lot of this, a lot of that. And look, the only event that really, fills their coffers during the course of the year is the Indianapolis 500. So I think they just don't want to take any chances. They don't want to open that Pandora's box of making it available on free TV. I would think there's an option to do pay-per-view for people who really want to see it, but apparently they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Well, that's new technology from what I understand.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else that makes Indy unique. The media access, unprecedentedly open. The access is great. The drivers are very open. The track is very open.
Yes.
They're putting their wares on display, and I think that's part of keeping this thing the way it has been. So down home, yet an international event. Open coolers, people. If you don't know, you can bring a cooler with beer in it.
Yes,
into the track,
not into the press room.
No, not into the press room. Bob tried that and he got caught. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. That was me. No, but at Churchill Downs, you try to sneak alcohol in, and buddy, they got you. They'll bust you. Bam, bam, bam. They're wanding you and everything else. Oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's the complete opposite.
Indy 500. I probably love the 2 weeks leading up to the Indy 500 as much as I love the race, because guys are so accessible. and they're so easy to deal with. And I've gotten a chance to talk to Mario and AJ and virtually every driver over the course of the last couple of years. Alexander Rossi, we sucked down a couple of bourbons and talked for over an hour 2 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it was. So I just find them, they're unique characters. They live on the edge. They're all adrenaline junkies, and I find them fascinating, more fascinating than most athletes.
Yeah, it is definitely a difference because 240 miles an hour is you can't even unless you've done it, and
No.
I haven't. Unless I on a plane taking off, 240 miles an hour, looking down a straightaway, and then knowing you're going to make an 88-degree turn or whatever it is.
And be
on 9-degree banking,
be this close to the wall at 200 and some odd miles per hour. You think about other sports, and I think we've all played a little basketball, we've all played a little baseball, a little hockey, a little this, that, golf. This is the one sport where I can't begin to imagine what it would be like. Now, I've been in the two-seater with Mario Andretti and have gone, he said, about 175 miles an hour. And I know that was mind-bending. It was scary. It was cool as hell, but it was scary. I can't imagine going even 40 miles per hour faster with 32 other cars on the track. It's astonishing to me. But I talked to Ed Carpenter before the race, and I said, does it slow down? Like when you're out there in a race car, is it like me going 75 on 465? And he said, absolutely. Everything slows down and it's in slow motion, and the speed just doesn't strike you. It doesn't impact you the way it does normal human beings. So it's just a unique sport, and I have great admiration for the men and women who take part in it.
And the race itself was a pretty daggone good race. It got a little janksy at the end, got a little NASCAR-ish at the end. But you know what? I think that you're going to see that from now on at races like the Indy 500, because it's winning, man. And these guys are just pushing everything until the limits. So I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more of that.
I think so too. I had no problem with the way they ended the race, by the way. I realized it was a one-lap sprint to the finish. If I was Marcus Ericsson, yes, I would be pissed off. But I just thought, if there's any way to end the Indianapolis 500 at 500 miles and end it on green, you take that opportunity to do so. And they did, and I thought we got an incredible finish.
And then you mentioned Ericsson. That's a story that could have been, my gosh, that could have been the first back-to-back champions in since I forget who did it last.
I forget too. It's been a while.
Been a minute, but he was right there. I mean, he had that within his grasp. That's immortality. I mean, winning 500 is one thing. Winning it back-to-back, hello, that's a whole different level.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I think New Garden is a very popular winner.
Oh, absolutely.
And keep in mind, I realize his first name is Josef. He sounds like he's from Sweden or something. But as you mentioned, he's from Nashville. He's the first American to win this race since 2016, which is remarkable. It's been that long. But, it was just a fantastic race. I realized it did get janky there at the end, but I thought it was handled well. And, sorry, Marcus, but the right guy won the race.
Yeah, that would have been something to see. What's up next for you?
Well, got a little Colts off season, and the NBA draft is coming up. So, it's kind of a slow time, Jim. So I'm playing a lot of golf and trying to stay out of trouble.
Well, trying to make up, this is a good time of year for guys like us to try to make up for those 18-hour days, 7-day week during the season.
Maybe for you. Maybe for you. You work a lot harder than I do.
Well, it could be maybe I'm just making it up in my own mind.
Maybe.
What so you get summertime, things do slow down, but we keep our eyes on what are some of the outside things though that you're paying attention to from afar? I know we have the draft that's coming up. The guys that you had, Zach Edey, which of no surprise to anybody, coming back to Purdue next year. Of course he is. And no surprises there. Oscar Shibwe staying in the draft, not really a surprise either, because I talked with Rick Moses. I mean, you look at the top 20 in the draft, man, they're freshmen. He was the player of the year last year. Right. Time is passing him by.
Right. Yeah, he needed to go out. The guy that I don't understand, and I've talked with our writer, Kyle Tucker from Kentucky. What's this Livingstone? Chris Livingston? What is he doing going out in the draft? He's got no – I've talked to people on behalf, for Kyle to help him with his story. He's got little to no chance of being drafted in the first round, if at all. So I don't understand that move in the slightest.
Yeah, when you see guys like that, it makes you wonder, all right, first of all, who are you getting your information from? Who are you listening to, and why are you listening to? Is there an issue back at school? I don't think so. So Kentucky, not only would Kentucky probably want him back, I'd say they need him back from everything I'm seeing on how their roster is going to be affected.
They are a super young team, and right now, Calipari does not have a very good team on paper. Now, will he eventually get those guys? I mean, history says that he will, but right now, Kentucky is kind of a back marker in college basketball, at least based on where they are right now. That could change, obviously, in the next couple of weeks to months.
Yeah, but how long how much longer do Kentucky fans deal with the Calipari show?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, he's a great car
salesman.
He's a great car salesman. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I really don't. He's a great salesperson. And at some point they're going to want to see some results, and they have not gotten the results in recent years with the top recruits.
And then you've seen what Indiana has brought in. They have a much, much different roster of guys, and filled it in pretty nicely. To be honest with you, I think that they're going to have a better team next season. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Big Ten looks like. You've got Zach Edey back at Purdue. Purdue's basically the same team they had last year, which people think that Purdue was this dominant force, which Zach Edey was a dominant force. Purdue was not. Purdue had the easiest schedule in the Big Ten. That's just a fact. That's not being made up.
Well, and they went and won the Big Ten by what, 2-3 games? So they took care of business. I realize they had the easiest schedule, and yes, they got beat by Indiana twice. So, they got that, but I still think Purdue is the team to beat. 6 out of 7 of your top scorers are back. You're adding Berg, you're adding Colvin, you're adding Hyde. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Cameron Hyde. So, Purdue's going to be really good again, and we're just going to wait until March to find out what it's all about.
And I don't disagree with you, but I wonder why, with having all those pieces back, the National Player of the Year, why are they not thought of as really more dominant? I don't.
Well, because I don't think they don't have the wings right now. I mean, Miles Colvin could certainly turn into one of those guys, but they don't have the wings and guards that you'd like for them to have necessarily. I mean, their backcourt was so young last year. I think those guys will be better. I just think they're loaded. I think they win the Big Ten, likely in a runaway for a second year in a row. But what happens
first here?
what happens in March, that's all that freaking matters.
Guard play, baby. Guard play, guard play, guard play.
Absolutely.
Go tee him up, my friend.
All right, I'll do that, buddy. I'll hit him straight.
Have a great one.
All
Bob
right,
Kravitz,
be well.
the great one, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat. We've got more coming up. Brought to you by Hoosier Hank. You can stop by and pick up whether it's pizza, mac bowls, top bowls. They're all incredible and delicious. Right on North College Avenue. 812-330-0000. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're whoa, whoever's been asking about this Hickory shirt, this just came straight from the Hoosier Jib. Actually, Bob, the former director there, he passed away now. He gave me this shirt. But, yes, you can just go to the Hoosier Gym online. Do.
Yes. Of course. All right, we'll have about 10 minutes here to wrap this up.
You'll get nothing like it. Oh, my God.
All right, 30 seconds.
Just off the square in Bloomington near Cabello is locally owned and operated by Endeavor Hospitality Group. Launched from a previous staple in Bloomington, the former Function Brewery, Metalworks Brewing Company is the culmination of a passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste with Dr. Hobbs' Brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Cabello. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
John Boy bringing us back with some smooth jazz sounds.
Sometimes you got to go into the weekend relaxed.
I'm telling you, man. Boy, that just puts you in a little vibe. Little Friday vibes for you, man. I'm liking it. I'm kind of digging it. Not bad. Not bad. Michael says it's interesting that Kravitz didn't even mention Michigan State as the Big Ten basketball contender next year. The Spartans should be good. Yeah, the Spartans will be in the they will be some people's favorites. No question about that. Yeah, was that? Well, that's exactly what that sounded like. Some Kenny G.
Yeah, it wasn't obviously real Kenny G, but it was probably in that style.
Fake Kenny G. We're not good enough here. We got fake Kenny G.
Yeah, we get copyright struck if we play that kind of stuff. By the way, we did get copyright yesterday for our little intro with Mr. Shooty. But hey, we said we were going to take that hit, weren't we?
Yeah, it's okay. I don't mind. That was funny. And all well worth it. What's going on for you this weekend? What do you got planned? What are you doing? I used to know the weather all the time. It was going to be, and now it's like there's just so much going on. I'm always like, what's it going to be like?
I don't know about you, but the 90s are here. It's June and the 90s are here. And if they're not here in your area, they're coming.
Here's what's funny. Yeah, Central Indiana going to see the 90s today. Saturday's jumping up to July weather, 94 degrees. Hello.
Now, I do believe we get a little cool down once we get the week rolling next week, but
94 on Sunday or Saturday is the apex, and then it just starts going back down. Sunday, Monday, 89. Then you get a nice little drop off on Tuesday, down to 80. Then Wednesday and Thursday, upper 70s.
You see, we're in that transitional period where you get some days that are outrageously hot. You get the comfortable days that are in the mid to upper 70s. I mean, we've still got a few weeks left until we officially jump into summer weather for good for a while.
Using those big words, big phrases. Transitional.
Transitional.
Had to get my thesaurus out. Yeah, everybody's going into summer hibernation, I guess, from a sports standpoint. The basketball programs, whether your team is Purdue or Indiana or Notre Dame, Ball State, Valpo, Butler. This gets quiet. This is just a quiet time. All the guys are moving in. The new guys moving onto campus. Like I said, Ja'Kai Newton, I think, moved in Wednesday. So he was probably not alone. And they begin bonding and doing things together and practicing and working out and getting with it. A lot of fun, but a lot of work. A lot of work. But there's a lot of other things that go on during the summer, a lot of different events that we get to follow. Hey, don't forget you have all of the all-star events coming up. Beginning this weekend. Now, unless you're in the southern part of the state, it's going to be a haul for our friends listening in Fort Wayne on 1380 The Fan, getting down to Jeffersonville on Sunday for the juniors versus juniors, or our friends up in the region listening on WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. Now, it's not as bad for those down on the river listening on the ref, 97.7 ESPN, always the right call. They can just scoot up 64 there and slide in there real easily. Now, but it's your opportunity to see some of Indiana's top juniors, Flory Badunga, and their top target for next season, without question. It's going to be interesting to see how his recruiting goes. I mean, he has a a very solid relationship with staffers at Cincinnati. But I don't know that I don't know how much weight that's going to actually carry in the end. Because while we keep Cincinnati's making some noise, they haven't moved up to that level yet, and Indiana's there. A, Indiana's there. B, there's no way in hell Cincinnati has the NIL money for basketball. Flory Badunga could come to a school like Indiana, having only been playing basketball now for what, 4 years? 4 years removed from the Congo, and could become almost an instant millionaire. Now that happens in pro sports, of course, all the time, but that could happen for him as soon as he goes to college. Speaking of temperatures, not to switch temperatures, our good friend Fozan from Amman, Jordan, who watches the show on YouTube, says it's 95 in Amman, and it's in the late afternoon. Yeah, you know what though? That's going to be about. That's about like it's going to be here. Yeah, that's exactly what it's going to be like on whatever days I just said that temperatures are climbing up. Today, tomorrow. Oh yeah, that's going to be like that here. You sent that weather our way, Fozan. And I think that Fozan, was that, he sent a picture, or we saw a picture of him. John, was that in front of, trying to remember if that was in front of a bunch of grapevines.
Let me see if I still have it. If I have it, I'll pull it up, but I don't know that I still have it on here.
Was that a vineyard? I can't remember. And if it was, boy, where's our Armanian wine? You know, I mean,
yeah,
we should have.
I don't think it was in front of a vineyard, but I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again. I'm seeing if I still have this photo somewhere, but I'm not seeing it. My apologies.
I'm trying to remember where on MASH, who was the dude that dressed in the women's clothes?
I've seen a few episodes of MASH, but not enough to know who you're talking about.
Anyway, I was thinking he was Armanian. But that was just a joke on there. But yeah. It's going to be a fun weekend regardless. I hope you have enjoyed it. Today on the program, we're back on Monday to do it again. If we didn't do a good enough job Monday, Klinger, that's who I was looking for. Oh, he was Lebanese. Okay. Thanks, guys. If we didn't do a good enough job today, we'll try again on Monday to do it all over again, and look forward to it. Cannot thank our guesting up today, Alec Busse from thehoosier.com, Zach Osterman, and Bob Kravitz. John, the producer, for keeping us between the white lines. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. So thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.